Hello, Positive Filter listeners. This was a great episode with State Senator Salim. We had so much to talk about that we couldn't cover it in just one episode. So this is just one part of a two-part series in which I chronicle his journey as a public servant and what it means to be a man of the people. Enjoy. Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, people of the world. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. I'm joined by a special guest. Well, everyone's a special guest. I'm joined by Salim. Now, this is a rock star alum. You know, I think after this recording comes out, he would have already gave a keynote or at graduation. But he is a phenomenal public servant, and he's actually running for state legislation, right? I guess state Congress. We're going to get into that, but he's also a Mason alum. But before we do that, I want, go ahead, Saddam, introduce yourself briefly.
Yeah, like you said, I'm State Senator Saddam Salim. I, did my bachelor's and my master's at George Mason University. And of course, as of right now, as of this podcast, as of this recording, I am running for Congress in Virginia's new 7th District.
Now, did you grow up and go to high school around here too?
Yeah, so I did. I went to Fall Church High School.
All right.
Which is not too far from here.
Yeah, I went to Mount Vernon, so we used to punish y'all on everything. So, I like to do origin stories before I get into current events. When you were going to high school, were you involved in like SGA or activities? Were you what was a little bit of the civic class? Was that your favorite class? Talk a little bit about that high school experience.
No, absolutely. So world history was my favorite class, and I learned a lot from it, as in the history of how we became who we are today, along with the fact that we can go look back and say, these are all the mistakes different civilizations have made, different folks have made, world leaders. And as much as we're like, hey, we're all for them, they have made a lot of mistakes over the years. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of success along the way as well. But that was my favorite subject because it's something that has already happened. And our goal is to learn from that so that we don't make the same mistakes. But I think you're going to see in reality that's the opposite.
Yeah. I'm a history major, and we definitely don't learn. We just recycle, rinse and repeat. It's just a different morphine of it.
Yeah. And so I was never in student government. I just went straight and said, I'm going to be class president of my senior class.
Okay.
And then became class president because, so I was sitting during my brother's graduation. He was the class before me.
Yep.
And I go, there's a person that's up here that gets to speak the whole time.
Yeah.
Introduce people, all this stuff. How do I get to be there?
Yes.
And then I looked up the program and it said class president. I said, you know what? I got to be class president.
That's it. Yeah.
So come next year, I go out there and this is, me running against somebody else. And I had no idea how to run any campaigns or anything. All I did was tell people, hey, I'm running for class president, maybe one poster up, and just told my friends, and they all thought this would be funny if I was class president.
Yeah.
And, I went up against somebody else who was sort of the athlete in the class, was the popular
the quintessential,
person, the cheerleader and all that in our class, and ended up where I think I ended up winning majority of the votes just from one poster and having my friends think it would be hilarious. Yeah. Hey, we're going to have a guy named Saddam be our president.
Yes.
And that's where it really all started. Once I got to become class president, I realized it wasn't just, hey, you got a title. It was, we got to do a fundraiser for this one event. Yeah. And then we got to put, we got to do all these other things, from the school's parking lot to senior day, from all of those little things. And I go, man, this is a lot of work than I thought it was. I thought this is just
do the speech, right?
Yeah.
It's like the Wizard of Oz. Like, you learned a little bit behind the curtain where you saw the title and then you realize all this work behind the scenes, which I think is kind of interesting because now you're seeing that now with the local government. It's probably the same. Like, someone was like, hey, I'm just going to see if I can run for a title, but now it's a lot of work behind the scenes. It's crazy how it kind of full circle there.
And here's the thing. After that, when I graduated, and I think a lot of folks will be like, oh, this is, you don't feel that. So I was the class president. I took about 4 AP classes that same year.
Yep.
My mom was going through a health crisis at that time where we finally have affordable health care that saved her life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing track and field, cross country. I was a pole vaulter doing the 1 mile. And everything felt like it was coming down, crashing senior year because I was trying to do everything.
Yes.
And I lived about a mile away from the school. So
I'm tracking, yeah.
my dad was always, he was going into work at 10 a.m. and would come back at 10 p.m. And to be able to work a minimum job, both of my parents did that. We didn't have the luxury of to say, oh, my parents are going to pick me up after school or after an activity. I walked home.
Yeah.
So after the practice of 6-7 miles of just running around and doing all this stuff, I had to walk another mile home. And that was really what it was. It was in high school. And once I, became class president, I realized behind the scene work, and I said, I'm never going to be the guy that's in the front. I'm going to be the guy behind the scenes doing the work.
Yeah.
So I've always said, I don't think politics is for me. I'm going to be the guy that helps the guy that's out there to say, you're going to get great policies. Here's all the stuff.
Yeah.
And that was true until later on. So it was an interesting phase.
So, I think, and these are things where I'm like, I don't think a lot of people understand that journey where like you were getting this experience and how important it is to get involved as a young person, how it can transform. Talk a little bit about going to like college. Like, what was that journey like? And
so, it's kind of interesting journey. So I previously mentioned, like mom got sick. So I had a couple of options was to say, hey, I'm going to go and take this as close to a full ride scholarship as you can think of to a private institution.
Yeah.
And when they gave me that, I was like, man, this is a tough choice for me to make. And, my siblings and I became translators for my parents. They didn't understand the healthcare system. They didn't understand what was really going on with my mom, and ended up where, as we were walking through that process, my brother was doing the same thing, and he stayed back and went to Northern Virginia Community College.
That's it, yeah.
And, I was talking to him, and he says, hey, there's a program where if you do 2 years there, you can transfer to any other colleges in Virginia. And I was like, no, I got this full ride that I'm going to do. And the toughest decision I had to make in that moment was I applied to a lot of colleges and I was like, I'm never going to get in. And turns out you get in.
Yeah.
And then they actually want you there. They're like, hey, we're going to give you all these financial aid. We're going to give you all these help. Come down here. And we're going to make this 4 years. We'll work out the details, but we really want you to be here. Once you experience that, you're like, wait a minute, now there's a tough decision I have to make. I ended up realizing my mom and my dad, they needed me more here than anywhere else. Like the school and all that stuff will be there. But if my mom's gone, she's never, I won't see her ever again.
Yeah,
and
that's
I only
more
get
important.
that one shot. So I took that as that was more important. I remember the rental unit, again, we were in low-income housing while I was in high school. The unit that we were in, I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I think these are the tough things you have to make, choices you have to make in life, and they will either determine that things are going to be great or you're going to cry about it. And I chose the part, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take this as a learning opportunity to say, sure, I could have had the full ride, but I stayed here. I helped out my family. I made sure I went to a community college. I did the 2-year and the 4-year program, but it did not come with a cost of $150,000 in debt.
Yeah.
Even with the student, with the full ride scholarships, a lot of people still come up with debt somehow. So I took it as that. And, the dean of the college called me.
Which one? The Mason?
Of the one that I turned down. That, hey, I'm not going to be able to go. So I sent an email.
Okay. Hold up. When I say you sent an email, was it one of those things where you accepted and then went back on it, or you were?
So it was one of those things where I sent them an email saying, "Hey, I'm in a situation. Here's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. Would a deferment of a year be worth it, or I just don't know.
I don't want to lose this opportunity. Can I defer my admissions?
Correct.
All that stuff.
And here's the thing: between my brother and I, none of us in my family have ever gone to college in America.
So you're learning a lot of this.
We didn't know the system. We didn't know how it works. I was late to taking the SAT, the ACT, all of that. So when I sent that email, and I'm like, this is, it's probably clear they don't want me there because I gave them two options, and usually they're the one that's giving me an option. Ended up where the dean of the college calls me around 9 p.m. at night and says, "Hey, I really like to talk to you. What do you want to do?"
Yeah.
And I felt like that was the first time somebody really came up to me and said, "What do you want to do?" Like they wanted my opinion. And I said, "Well, here's where I'm stuck. What do you think?" And his answer was really, "I think your family needs you more than we need you."
See, that's correct. And that's actually very commendable because you think about the business of higher ed. He would have tried to do anything to get you, but that's value based.
Yeah.
Like family is a big value. So that's a big shout out to that president.
Yeah.
Or dean, sorry.
So when he did that, I was like, I think you just helped me make my decision. And I never looked back at that to say, oh, I made a wrong decision or a right decision. But I ended up going to Northern Virginia Community College, did the 2 years, and then did the transfer to a 4-year. And I figured, I'm already in the area. Why not stay with Mason? And really enjoyed my time here. Everyone says, hey, this is a commuter school, but you really get to see. I had friends who were from New Jersey, who came from North Carolina. They all heard about the basketball team making it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
So they wanted to be part of this in the hopes that the next team will become and get to the Final Four. And really, there was a lot more folks that I met that weren't commuter school students. They were all who lived on campus, off campus, but they were from another state. And they felt,
they got the college experience, and they made it their college experience.
Exactly. They got the college experience. They also met friends who they can come over to their house. They can, get a ride. They got that sort of, I feel like I'm at home, yet I'm at college experience where if you really need to study, you were on campus. And I got the same experience where I had that college experience, and I had a friend who had a dorm that I could go to and say, hey, let's hang out. That was a mutual experience that I think a lot of folks will look at and say, wait a minute, a commuter school does not offer that, yet it did exactly that.
I thought about that. That never thought about that as a plus minus is that, inversely, when people think of this school, they think of, commuter and don't have the student experience. But if you really think about it, hone it in, you also have a surrounding community of Northern Virginia.
Yep.
So that I never thought about you can have that dorm experience, but then also you could have that familiar experience where hey, one of my friends, he went to Robinson. We're going to go on the weekend. We could get at least a home cooked meal from a family that's across the street. And so that's a very unique experience if you take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So did you directly, I know it said world history was your favorite topic. What made you decide your major at Mason?
So here's the funny part. So I went to Northern Virginia Community College. I was like, all I needed was a associate degree.
Yes.
And I was like, I was really interested in psychology. Let me get an AA in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed the courses, really enjoyed all of that. And almost halfway through towards the end, I was like, I should really take some math courses. I should take stat.
Yeah.
Just so that it's not heavy on one end. What if I change my mind when I get to Mason or wherever I get to? And when I applied to Mason, I actually never chose a major. They just assigned the first thing that was listed at the top.
Yeah,
so I go to orientation, and they're like, you're going to be here, 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 and it said accounting.
Oh, okay.
And I'm thinking,
they start with the A. Okay, A. Accounting.
They started with the A, and I get to the orientation, and I'm like, what, this could be fun. I think there's a reason why they, this was chosen. A full semester in, I was like, accounting is not for me. I am not a numbers guy. I don't want to sit behind a desk and just do numbers. So, one of my friend from high school who did the same program, the 2-year, and then came to Mason, he said, hey, look, I want to get into government. I want to work on policy. I want to be the guy behind the desk at an agency. And the more him and I talked about, exactly what he was doing, I was like, hey, maybe I want to do that. So I ended up switching my major.
I love it.
So here's the interesting part. He is now a state senator in Minnesota.
Oh, he actually, okay. Wow,
Yeah.
he kept on going. Okay.
So he kept going, but he had a different way of getting there. But that was really the start of really picking that major, was that I knew somebody who was a friend who I was like, all right, if my friend's doing this, there's no way he's going to tell me to do something, different. And then through him, we met, I met another friend who I actually just went to his wedding about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm going to forget the state. And I don't want to say Louisiana. I know he's gonna be like, "That's
Is it
not right."
Alabama? Is it down there? Arkansas?
It's down there, and I'm going
Is
like
it Texas? Well, it's in the South. Georgia.
it's in the South.
Okay. Yeah. So you went to this buddy. So you had, you started having multiple friends that were in.
Yeah.
Is it always called the Schar? Was it the Schar School when you were there?
So when I undergrad, it was not called the Schar School.
I thought so.
It was just a school for public policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I did the master's, I think I was part of the first two graduate class. That's when they really were like, "Hey, we really got to rethink this," and then they changed it to the Schar School after that.
Now, once again, the Mason story, I think what is super unique, also just in general, is that, okay, you pick a major, but also being that we're in the Northern Virginia area, being out right outside D.C., has a great opportunity for, if you're studying government, then you can actually practice, get, whether informally here on campus with internships and all that. So now that you got this major, you're actually enjoying it. That's two questions. When you switch your major, when was the light bulb off? I made the right choice by switching from accounting. Wow, I really like this class. I really talk about that. And then I got another question after that.
Yeah. So I had a couple of professors, including my advisor, and I think a lot of folks will know when I say this, he would always try to convince you to take a math course.
Okay.
And I don't know if he's still here, but including my friend who convinced me to switch majors, had said the same thing here. You're going to get an advisor. He's going to try to convince you to take math courses all the time because he thinks that's, the world needs more of that. And when it really clicked, when I was taking a couple of classes where my professors ended up saying, "Hey, look, my daytime job is working for a federal agency.
That's it, yeah.
And these are the things that I want you all to learn because these are going to be applicable to the real world."
Yep.
Once he said that, it kind of clicked that I wasn't just learning from a textbook. I was learning from somebody who was in the field, who could come in and really tell me not only how his day was, but also how does our course apply to what he does on a daily basis. And he was in an agency that was in D.C., so I felt like I was getting an education on Capitol Hill while I was miles away. That is when it really clicked. I was like, you know what? I believe this is the right major for me.
Yeah.
I made the right decision. So that learning didn't become sort of a frustration. It became something fun. It became something I was looking forward to.
Like every class, like a case study. Like this dude, he's not going to just say in a book, blah, blah, blah. He'll be like, in a book, blah, blah, blah. And today I actually did this.
Correct.
Which is the very unique circumstance with all our faculty in the Schar School. They're like, I actually work for this agency, or actually, shout out to David Ramadan. He's like, I actually was a local politician, and this is my buddy, and he calls him up, and they come into class and stuff. So
he's actually a good friend of mine.
Yeah, I bet he is. He knows everybody. I saw him outside. I was like, this dude knows everybody, man. This is crazy. So the second part, now you get into instruction, and you're like, wow, I made the right choice. What kind of activities and things did you get involved in? One, for fun for yourself, and two, for building real experience in government, local politics.
Yeah. So first, I joined the Mason Running Club.
Okay.
I think it was a small number of maybe 12 students, and it wasn't that big, but they were sort of the misfits. And you have to understand, I was not popular in high school. I was not popular anywhere else. I just saw, hey, there's an opportunity here where I could really work hard and get somewhere.
Okay, I mean, I'm gonna challenge a little bit. Let's refrain. You're not traditionally popular, but you got a lot of people that at least vote for you in SGA, right? Okay. So I used to joke, I talk to everybody. I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
I wasn't definitely the ladies' first choice. I wasn't in the A group, but I was also Phil, the person that randomly knows everybody.
Yeah.
That guy, right? I was in smart class. I ran track. I wasn't prom king, but I was my best friend's prom king. I was that kind of guy. I was that's more so that seems like your vibe. Your vibe doesn't seem like an outcast. It's more so you're plugged in, but you're not the A.
I was in between. I was in between. So I joined the running club, and then right off of it, I was like, man, I really don't know what else to do. So I also did the thing because I had to pay for portions of my courses.
Yes.
I worked on the weekends.
Yes.
So I was working at a Home Depot Friday night, Saturday morning, and then the whole day Sunday. But on campus, it was really the running club, and then Really, nothing else. I wasn't well involved because the friends that I had,
Yes.
and we were like, hey, this is the college experience. We're just gonna horse around.
Yeah.
But we learned stuff. We would do a lot of these study groups with other students in our class. We went from maybe like 2 students to now there's 20 of us at the JC just on a random Tuesday afternoon, just
Yeah.
here. And
You built a community. You didn't need a formalized RSO. You had a community.
correct. So
Yeah.
what we ended up doing is, hey, you can only book a study room for 2 hours. Now
Yeah.
there's 20 of us,
Yeah.
so we can book it for the next couple of days. And that became sort of a social club for us where
Yeah.
I didn't know who this was. And somebody would be like, hey, this is my cousin who's starting today.
Yeah.
He's actually from another state. Or this is, my friend who's in a different major, but he wants to study with us. So it ended up becoming a weird club of not only minorities, but just individuals who didn't really do all the activities, but they
Had a community.
had a community that
Wow.
they felt like they belonged to. And you can participate 20 minutes or 3 hours or 3 days, but you weren't you weren't beholden to a structure
Yes.
that said, hey, you got to be here every Tuesday at this time at this
Nah,
time.
it was a fluid community.
It was very fluid, and between all of that, I think I saw the college Democrats, and I fully didn't join. I just was like, let me attend some of these.
Yeah,
these
you were just
meetings.
you was like you
I was just like,
you're plugged in. I'm telling you, like I'm already getting the vibe where you don't have to be totally in the front, but
Yeah.
you was connected to people, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't want to make a full commitment, but I want to be on the side, just looking in.
Yeah.
And even that moment, I think a lot of us, including the students, we all realized, when it's International Week, JC will have the flags that come out. They will do all the celebration. A lot of us, and I really mean this, when you see all the attack people get right now from being different countries and different places, I think a lot of us still did not see that. We just saw, like, I have an Asian friend, I have a black friend, whoever. We just saw ourselves as a community of folks who watched out for one another.
Yeah.
And I always mention this to people because there was a moment in life where I had the switch where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting discriminated and my friends are also getting discriminated. And we all just looked at each other in the eye like, this is really reality of what's happening in the real world.
Outside the walls. I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Like we have that bubble, like,
Yeah.
Like little kids. Kids don't grow up with hate.
Yeah.
And kids don't, we do recognize differences, and you have a black friend, like little kids, and it's mostly the influence of the world outside on those kids that, grow prejudice and all that stuff. And kids didn't know that. And so I think, quote unquote, like grown kids, but this college, like, we're just Mason, we're hanging out. And I think the outside influences exacerbate or show that, wow, this is really, there's some inequities in the world. And some, like, the world, like George Mason or any environment is not immune to the influences of the world.
Yeah.
But you try to still make safe spaces, right, to have some protection from that.
Yeah.
That's
and that's what it was. It was, and then when you look at it, there was other groups that did the same thing where they had their own little bubble.
Yes.
And then we had Muslim Student Association where they worked really hard to get a prayer space at the JC, and now you got on the third floor 6-7 different groups of students that are sort of, when you look at it, you're like, oh, these are just students in one place. But when you really look at them, it's like you had 6 different segments and different individuals that came together and did their own thing, yet they were part of this big system that was Mason.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now you would say that too. Like, I think there is still that vibe in the JC. And then I went to Fenwick, and when they did the little renovation, there's still that vibe of just people just studying, but it felt very like they were just going, felt like people were like squatters, like they just sat there all day, but there's still a space. So you're about to approach graduation. What's going through your head? What's like, how do you invest, think about my career after college?
Yeah. So undergrad, I was like, hey, I don't know what to think about. So I just went to the master's, and I had a professor who's still teaching, and he's maybe written his 20th book. He told me one thing. He said, Saddam, you're going to be graduating at a time where the economy is going to be at its lowest. We are still recovering. And then this is his exact word, with a name like Saddam, you're going to have a tough time getting a job out in the real world.
Okay,
And
positionality, right? Did you, like that's kind of like, it's like someone, not say offensive, but it's also like real talk. Like someone saying like, no, someone like, that's
yeah,
like my dad telling me, right? Like as a black man,
yeah.
you're going to face these prejudices and you're like, dang, that's prejudice. But then at the same time, they're giving you a reality check. So how did you receive that?
So you're going to get something that's very exclusive, and I hope my opponents in the congressional race are running so they don't have to pay 20 grand to do opposition research. So I had a name change. So my last name used to be Hossein with an Hossain. So when you read it, it just says Saddam Hussein. That's where it really came from.
Yeah.
And I looked at him. I was like, "What are you talking about? I'll be fine." And then his advice was apply to over 100 jobs and keep a record of exactly which one you applied, and you will get maybe 5 to 10 calls back, maybe 3 to 4 interviews and one job offer. And I'm like, no, he can't be right. So I took it on a mission. I was like, I'm going to prove him wrong. By the time I did the 10th application, somebody's going to give me a job. I go through this. I think it was like 112 to 115 jobs. And I'm just hearing back through emails saying, they went on a different direction, all that stuff. And then at least 4 people called back and said, we would like to do an interview. And then one of them offered the job. And I was like, damn, he was right. Like, that's crazy.
But, and it's not the challenging part. I think the challenging part for me is conceptualizing is that, like, you're not wrong. It's the system. Like, and like, that's not fair. So, but it is reality. So how do you deal with that duality? Like, for instance, like, I know that my name, Philip Wilkerson, sounds pretty white, like Eurocentric. Like, my name is Philip Linwood Wilkerson III. That sounds, and they'd probably be surprised if I pop up and they see a black gentleman. And I understand that. And then I was like, so naming matters. Like, I named my kids very, I ain't gonna lie, I named my sons Bennett and Miles, very Eurocentric names, because I know the world is like that and makes perceived judgments. And so sometimes I get angry because I'm like, it's not fair, but I'm doing it anyway. Yeah. So what is your thoughts on that?
So I personally never took it any offense to it. I just said, look, I'm going to work hard, prove everybody wrong.
Yeah.
And yes, the world will kick you back and say, nope, you will not be able to do that. And that is really the reality, is that the perception that you thought you had of the world was not the same as what the world thought of you, or what the perception that's going to give you, or the reality it's going to give you. That is the hardest part to hit, whether you're in high school or in college or in the middle of your career. If you're like, hey, I'm going to go in there with a positive mindset, things are going to be okay, but things are not. That is not a reflection on the work that you put in, the stuff that you have done. That is just a reflection on the factors and the external things that we don't think about. That is how I think about this. And I do believe, you're a parent now, and you got to set your children up the right way. And what you think is right, and then 20 years down the road could be not the right thing.
You're right.
And in that capacity, there is no right or wrong. It's just what you thought was the best option at that moment is what you gave to the world. And if the world said, hey, this is not the best option, there's nothing you could have done. It is not your fault in any way. You just got to keep going.
Got to pivot, yeah. So you did that, and you're getting your master's, and you change your name. So what was the thoughts like? What did you enter? What was your first job after the master's?
Yeah. So after the master's, I was still with the credit union that I was working at. So I ended up going from just being a teller and really working my way through, or the representatives at the bank, and really working my way through. By the time I graduated, I was an internal auditor.
Okay.
So I went to my boss and I realized he's retiring. Then I was, and this is how it really happened. As soon as I got the master's, I was like, man, I really got to find something that's applicable to the master's.
Yeah. Because you're working in finance at the bank, but you wanted to do something applied to your degree.
So I wanted to do something in policy, in the administrative side. And I'm at the lunchroom having lunch, and I'm like, man, there's no other table here, no seat. And I sit, and I see a chair and it's open, and there's an older woman who's sitting there. So I go up, I was like, hey, such and such, It's great meeting you. I know you just got on board as the new director of HR. So I'm over there. I'm sitting down. I'm talking to her, and this great lunch. And I'm like, all right, I get to sit with somebody I've never talked to and really have that conversation. 2 days later, she's she added me on LinkedIn to keep in touch, even though we work in the same company. Which I was like, oh, this is great. I get to grow my LinkedIn network. Literally at the end of that week, she's announcing she's going to be director for a major accounting firm.
Okay.
And I'm like, man, that's kind of crazy. Like, you never know how fast people are moving, but good for her. Like, she's able to find the job that she wanted, and the industry that she wanted. And I think this was in passing. Fast forward a week or two, I'm at a point where I'm like, man, I just graduated. What do I do? I don't want to stay here, but I told my bosses that he's retiring, and I talked to a couple other VPs, and I said, hey, look, I just got my master's in public admin with a concentration in public and nonprofit finance. So one of the VPs that heard it, she comes over, she's like, hey, we have a foundation within the credit union. Would you be willing to come work for the foundation? And we'll figure something out, and we will look at getting you some experience. I think you got the qualification, but you don't have the experience. This could really help you out. You will still be within the ecosystem of the credit union.
Yes.
And I said, let's do it. Let's move forward. And while that's happening, a week goes by, and I'm like, hey, what's going on, really? And she goes, hey, look, I have to restructure my whole team and hand over the nonprofit side and the foundation side to another VP. He'll be in touch and all that stuff. And for about a week, while that's happening, another week goes by. I'm talking to my new boss who just came in after my old one retired. And I'm talking to him. I'm like, hey, I really want to stay with the audit team, but I think I need you to create some type of role that gives me more responsibility, a bigger pay, along with utilizing my skills. Even though we do audits, I have all these background in policy, background in the finance side that could be something different. And this is where reality hits. My boss comes over. He says, hey, I want to be able to create something. Help me create this new position that I think that I would like for you to move over to, and then we'll replace you with somebody else. That way you sort of have this ladder. And that was the first time I ever had to sit down with the boss and talked about career moves and really building the career. And I'm like, oh, this is what it looks like. And, I wrote him a whole couple of pages worth of, here's what I think we need to do. Here's what I think the new position would be. Here's how I would create sort of another audit position. And I get an email back at the end of the day where I believe he accidentally CC'd me on the email. And it said, hey, here's an opening for you. I would like for you to apply to this job. And it wasn't me. It was somebody else.
Hold up. So he had you draft a job description that you drafted for him to offer to someone else.
Correct. But
Wow.
this whole time, I thought
It was for you.
the conversation we had and the conversation about careers, where he sees me, it was about me.
It's a little bit of a punch of it.
And I was like, man, this is crazy. What the heck just happened? And as soon as that happened, I was like, you know what? Today is Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. The day will get better. I think I got a plan. So I'm upset for about maybe 20 minutes to an hour. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to prove him wrong. I go on LinkedIn literally that night, and I'm like, all right, I see the same person that was HR for another firm that she went over to.
The one that you had the conversation at the lunch
one I had
table.
the conversation with. And I immediately reached out to her, and she literally that same night reached out and said, hey, let's chat. You have the qualification, and also we are looking for somebody for this one project that you might be interested in. And I'm thinking, you know what? It's worth a shot. So I have my conversation with her literally the next morning, and she goes, hey, I want to bring you in next week for an interview with the firm. And they're really looking for somebody who's got a master's in MPA. And we have this contract with one of the agencies that requires somebody with a nonprofit and public finance.
And you had that
I had
concentration.
that concentration, and I go, there's no way.
There's no way. Yes.
This is kind of
the universe speaking to you.
like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm going to go to the interview and do it. Literally come, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember the exact date. I have the interview, and this goes from 1 hour to a 2 hour interview, and I walk out of there with an offer to work for an accounting firm as a staffer, and then really build up my resume from there. And that was when I realized, wait a minute, half of the stuff is never about the application. It is about who you know,
Yeah.
what the conversation you have,
Yeah.
and how you interact with people in those conversations. So I reached out to another boss of mine before accepting, and I said, hey, you gave me my first shot in the credit union. Why did you do it? Or when I put in the request to go to do the special project at headquarters, somehow you selected me to go there. And I asked her the story. I was like, how did that happen? She goes, well, the bank was not busy. And I saw representatives just sitting around talking and doing other things. You were the only one that was trying to do some upkeeping and actually work. And I thought that was good character. So when this came up, so between the branch and the audit, I had a couple of steps in between that I skipped. Those are the points where somebody else, another VP or director, saw me do something while they were visiting the branch on their personal capacity. And they were like, you know what, that's who I want on my team if I have an opening in headquarters.
I'm learning. So 2 things I'm hearing from that story. One is people driving connections, and your ability to connect with people has been a strength since high school. You're like, how did I get here? Well, you asked your friends and friends voted for you and all this. How did I get here? Well, then my friends got me at the table. How did I get here? VP. So that's one thing, right? And then another lesson too, I think, is that age-old thing, like your character is what you do when no one's looking. And that does speak, because then people are looking that you don't know are looking. And so you didn't know that. So that's how you carry yourself. So those 2 things kind of manifest itself to these opportunities. So I know we're jumping around, but I think, to this, get to the current space. How did you decide to enter local politics and local government? Like you're doing the credit union, you got the degree, you're doing the nonprofit finance stuff, but how did it go to the guy in the front, the public servant?
Yeah. So, I was getting the master's, got all that stuff, got the job. Worked for an accounting firm. So they put me at the U.S. Institute of Peace.
Okay.
And they said, hey, you're going to go there. You're going to help them out with accounting. You're going to help them with some budget stuff. And I ended up working my way and became an actual employee as a budget analyst. And that's where I got into the government space.
Yep.
And really learned the budget process within rather than what was on the books. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I remember my professors talking about this, and now I get to see it. Yeah. And that
math, the math came.
And I really reflect on a lot of the professors that we have at George Mason, the real life experience to what they taught me, and how it was just a seamless application to, if I were to look at just the book and then try to apply it, I would be confused. That's when I was like, oh, this is exactly what they were talking about. But while I was there, I just realized the world and the policies that we were doing. So we were doing a lot of work, U.S. Institute of Peace. They do a lot of peace building across the world. Mm-hmm. Right now, the Trump administration came in and they dismantled it. But at the time when I was working there, we were doing a lot of good work, from research to really funding programs overseas so that people get out of situations. But along that way, you get to learn every story. Every time we have a report come out, the story behind how that was created. Mm-hmm. And I just did not like how a lot of times we as America and we as Americans were so blinded to the fact that, hey, we got something great going on, but it was at the expense of other people overseas. Mm-hmm. That's when I was like, I think I want to do a switch on what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I want to be on the other side of this, so that I do think every day I come in from 9 to 5 that it's actually meaningful. We're actually making change happen. Yeah. And then I hit the career block where I'm like, I don't really know how to do that.
Yes.
I didn't have mentors who could say, hey, you want to come to the policy side, here's how you get to the policy side. So while I was there, I started volunteering locally at Democratic committees, anybody that wanted to help folks register voters.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I was
The
like,
civic engagement, volunteering
that
part.
part.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, I was like, man, this is really difficult. Like, I just don't want to talk to people. I don't know how they're gonna think, who's this kid that's trying to get me to register to vote? And when I got there, there was an older gentleman, and he was the chair of that committee. And he said, "Hey, come on in. We'll help you get settled in, all of that." And he's like, "Here's a clipboard. Here's what you do. Let me explain to you the process." And I was like, "Oh, this gentleman's very nice," and he ended up becoming a very good friend. And I just do that for a little bit. And next thing I know, he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna leave as committee chair. I want you to run."
You know what? I'm going to go back to this is like the
Yeah.
accidental leadership story of all, like the quintessential. I did not ask to do this, and it happened. So he's like, I'm about to bounce. You're next. You're right. So it's crazy.
And I'm looking. I'm like, wait a minute. You want me to be next? And then
yeah.
another person that was interested, I said, "Hey, why not?" He reached out. He said, "Hey, let's have a conversation. You want to run? I want to run." And we had a sit down. We got coffee. By the time we walked out, we were gonna co-lead this committee. This was before COVID. And I'm going, this is great. I get to do behind the scenes work. He's going to be the face of it, just the way I wanted this.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, yes, this is exactly what I want. And bam, we both get elected as co-chairs. And then COVID happens. And now I'm like, how are we supposed to do civic engagement virtually?
Yes.
And that is, I believe that moment and the pandemic is where the birth of me getting into politics really truly began.
Yeah.
I learned so much in that process. I learned that in order to help someone, whether it was in person or virtual, there was always a solution.
Mm.
It wasn't just, hey, I can't do it because there's a pandemic. It was, let me find another way. Let me get you the help that you needed. That is what I learned from all of that. I ended up becoming the main party's finance chair. And after 2 years of being co-chair, I said, hey, look, I'm going to go and be finance chair because I really wanted to learn how the political finance works.
Yep.
It's not just me calling some folks up and they're going to give me money. What is that art?
Where's the money go? How's that work? Yes. Yeah.
So once I started questioning that and really saw an opportunity where the current finance chair is like, hey, I'm going to step down. You got to take care of family, do some other things. We need somebody to fill in the slot. And I was like, oh, I'll just run for it. I will fill in, and I, get there, and we do all these dinners, all these fundraisers. Now I'm really, truly, I learned the field.
Yeah.
I learned the grassroots. Now I'm learning how the finance works so that the grassroots can continue. Once, I saw all of that, did a good number of fundraisers, I realized as finance chair, I had to call speakers. I had to call Congress, representatives, U.S. senators, and sort of beg them to come to an event and be the keynote speaker.
Yes.
And that was when it hit me, is our politicians, regardless of whether you think they're the best people or the worst people, they have an ego beyond our own imagination where some of them have done it for so long and you can tell they require different treatment. And some of them have done this for 20, 30 years. They're still as humble as the first day they got there.
Oh, you're seeing the two dualities.
And I saw that too.
Yeah.
And I said, if I ever become somebody like that, I'm going to choose the guy
still acts themselves,
that stayed humble, that still acts the same way, that's still goofy, even though he's got the honorable such and such in front of his name or her name. That's who I'm going to be. So I think that process really helped me identify, if you want to be a leader, what type of leader do you want to be? And
those conversations you were having as the finance person, connecting with them and calling them on the phone and building relationships, you're like, wow. And then I think to your point, maybe it's like, wow, they're just people too. like you're like, it's not like, they're people in positions, but they're, at the end of the day, they're just people. And I'm calling them all the time and just talking to them.
And there was a couple of electeds who I met along the way, and I said, hey, why do you, between you and the other electeds, you kind of are a little bit different. Why? And he said, Saddam, this job requires me to get reelected every 2 to 4 years, depending on what seat you're in. And what I do reflects on what my constituents want, and the way I act and interact with people, determine not only my character, but do I get reelected because I spent $1 million, or do I get reelected because people like me? And I was like, no, you just got to raise money and then you'll win. And years later, it hit me what he really said is that you really have to be a good person and just be honest about everything in order to keep winning. But so while that was all happening, while I was doing the finance thing, a lot of folks were like, hey, redistricting happened in Virginia, all this stuff. Because some of the terms for current senators and delegates did not end until a couple of years after redistricting was implemented, folks came up to me and said, look, we really don't want this one guy to be our senator. Can we work with you to find a candidate? Okay. And I'm thinking, yes. Again, behind the scenes.
I love it. Yeah, behind the scenes guy.
So we're like searching. I'm talking to community leaders, and everyone I talk to, I give them the details of the district, what's everything, every corner of the district. I know this.
You're like a recruiter at this point. Like, think about like a football team. You're trying to recruit. Yeah. You're recruiting someone else. Okay? Yeah.
But this whole process, we are not finding anybody because everyone's like, I'm scared to go up against somebody who's got millions of dollars in their bank account.
Everyone was turning it down.
They're like, hey, this is a great idea. We do need to get rid of him. But
you do it.
It's not. It can't be me because I don't have I can't compete dollar for dollar.
Yes.
Fast forward December 2022. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, man.
Everyone's saying no.
Everyone's saying no. You know what? I'm just gonna tell folks this is not gonna happen. While this is happening, I join my local mosque, and some of the religious folks, some of the folks who are well involved in local communities are creating this sort of team of folks that could help them get civically engaged more. Yeah. So I was like, hey, I did this party thing. Let me help you all out. So I started to attend some of their meetings. While that's happening, I remember one conversation in one meeting before December. I'm over there. I stand up and I say, something, I don't think anybody's going to be able to challenge this guy. He's just got too much money. It's not going to happen. And here's a caveat. Somebody that is there that I've never met in that meeting.
Someone's watching quietly again.
Is watching. But here's a caveat. And I'm going to get to that in a minute, but do remind me.
Yes.
So I'm in that meeting. I'm like, it's never going to happen. None of this. But thank you all for participating. Like, whatever I can help the community get more engaged, all that. And again, the Muslim community really does not participate in the political world as much. They slowly are engaging at that time. Then I go back to, end of December 2022. We're still in COVID times. My brother and his wife are having a baby. And as my sister-in-law is giving birth, my brother gets COVID from somebody at the hospital. So that he can't go in. My sister has a flight where she has to fly out literally the next day. And my mom also is in the same situation where she gets the COVID as well. So my sister is helping my sister-in-law be in the labor room. And I'm just like, man, this is such a
crazy world.
Crazy world. Like, you think the hospitals will be on point, like they'll be able to do everything. And when my niece is born, and I go up with a mask from a distance. I can't be in the same room. I have to sort of distance myself. I see it through the glass, and I see, my mom, my sister-in-law, my sister, and my niece in the same frame from the outside. And then it hit me. I go, oh my gosh. 3 different generations, 3 different type of rights. And what I'm seeing in the world is that my niece's rights are getting chipped away. She has to be in school in Fairfax County, wherever, and do active shooter drills. For some odd reason, that was the thought that came to me.
You're thinking about just like, I'll be thinking about all the crazy stuff my kids got to deal with, and you just be like, your mind just goes down the rabbit hole.
And I'm going,
or this is my wife. My wife's sick. I hope she can get equitable care as a woman. It's just start going down the rabbit hole.
And I'm going, oh my gosh, the gentleman that nobody wants, he's against all of this. And then it hit me. I was like, I should be running for the Senate seat. Bam. That was the moment.
It clicked in the hospital with your niece.
It clicked. And then I go to this next meeting with the same people in December.
And go back. Yeah, this
And
this
I
is where
go
I bring it
back.
back. And so,
I go back.
is this going to connect to that quiet guy?
It is.
Okay, here you go.
No, it's going to connect to a lot of people. Then I get there and I go, I think there's a way to beat this guy. And I found the candidate and it's me. And I have a plan.
Do people clap or is it quiet? Like,
People were like, man, look, this is a Muslim guy who has no political experience, wants to challenge somebody who's been there for 16 years, who's got millions of dollars in the bank. No way this guy does it.
they didn't. So was it a crickets or did someone go? Yeah.
It was just like, yeah, we always say, God willingly, inshallah, you got this. Good for you.
So at least someone responded. You're like, all right.
And then, and then somebody comes up and we're having a conversation. And remember, I said in the first meeting that there was people in the audience, and then the second meeting there's people in the audience.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple of months later, the woman that I meet happens to be in the first meeting.
Yes.
Who is now my wife.
Wow.
So think about this. We were having this meeting at a mosque, just a civic engagement conversation. She happened to be dragged into this meeting by her dad, and none of us really thought. So now she'll remind me every time. She's like, I remember the day when you stood up and said, no one's going to be able to beat this incumbent with all this. And I looked at it. I was like, he's probably right. No one could beat this guy. And then the next meeting, you were a hypocrite. You came out and says, I know somebody that could beat him, and it's me.
That's crazy.
So that's what I mean. The series of events, and I really wish there was a timeline that I could like write out.
Draw it out. I mean, you should.
And
I
really,
think as an exercise, you probably, just for fun, I do that. Just do year by year and a highlight, and you can see a thought bubble, and you can see that it's, there's planned happenstance, chaos theory.
Yeah.
Like you put yourself in spaces and rooms you're supposed to be in, it's going to happen. But also at the same time, just like you can't predict some of this stuff too. Yeah. It's like once the oxymoron, planned happenstance. Like you planned to announce that you were going to run. The happenstance was that your wife was there, right? You planned to have that nice lunch with the lady.
Yeah.
It's happenstance that she was a VP at somewhere else. Like it's at the duality of life is chaos, but you still got to create opportunities and put yourself in those rooms.
Yeah. And again, when I went through that process and I said, hey, I'm going to announce that I'm running, I had zero political campaign experience. Didn't know how it works. I didn't know what the applications
No, you didn't have zero. You didn't have zero. You didn't have zero because you did it in high school.
so I called people around. I was like, hey, I'm going to do this. And I talked to every elected official.
Okay.
So,
but you're saying you didn't have campaign experience. One, you did because you learned how to talk to people.
Yep.
And two, when you announced, you had already called these people before.
Yeah.
You called them when you were doing it. So like you could call them. So like by happenstance, you were it was meant to be that you could call them and have all these access. You had access to all these people through the other foundation stuff.
Yeah. So what I thought was I needed all these great experience, but in theory, and I think you're right about this, in reality, by having those conversations, being committee chair, being finance chair, what I thought was not experience was actually experience.
100%.
And I think that's the biggest thing in life is that what we think is supposed to be at a 10, what you had or you have is already a 10.
You don't know it. You got to reframe it. 100%.
And so I called out reelected and I said, hey, this is something I want to do. What do you think? They're like, geez, we don't really like him either, and we want him out too, but he's got all this money and all that. Don't do it. So some of the people, my colleagues right now who are my closest allies, that I would go, I would take a bullet for them, have said, hey, don't run.
But they didn't say like, don't run because you're dumb. They were being kind of like somewhat pessimistic or...
They were being...
when someone tries to give you good advice and you're like, they're coming from a place of like love, but it's like, I'm not going to take it.
Yeah, they were basically being realistic to say, in the political world, when you got $1 million and you want to come challenge that, the odds are just simply against you. So they weren't like, hey, this is our guy. We don't like this. They were just saying, we don't want you to be disappointed.
Exactly.
And, the current majority leader in the Senate, him and I had a conversation. He comes up to me. Prior to that, I really have never talked to him. I always talk to his staff. So he comes up to me and he says, Saddam, this is something you ought to think about. I don't know if this is a good idea. Chap's done a lot of things as much as he's got flaws. And I meant to say my opponent at that time, the current senator, as much as he's got a lot of flaws, it's just you're going against
David Goliath, basically.
Situation. So now, fast forward that I won. Every time that event happens every year, I tell him, hey, it's our second anniversary of the event. You told me not to run. So we laugh about it, but he has become one of my greatest ally in the Senate, who's become a great mentor and somebody who really taken in saying, look, this guy did something. I shouldn't be upset at this. I should embrace it. That's the type of relationship that I'd end up creating. But in that process of running for office, you will be tortured as an individual, and both mentally, physically.
That's what I heard.
And then there is like an eighth or the seventh sense that's out there that you never thought existed. Those things will hit you all at once, and you realize it's either you versus the world, or you and your policies versus somebody else's policies. And, I hired a campaign manager who was great, who ran a smaller campaign and had experience from before. And again, she's looking at me like, oh, this is just another guy who wants to run all this, but let's have a chat and sit down. So I told her my whole life story. And then she's like, this is the American story that many people will not hear, and we're going to tell it. And that's exactly what we did. We spent January through June taking on what felt like years, from knocking doors to really talking to voters. Yeah. And I didn't do let's do the big 10 issues that everybody cares about or that we tell them what they should care about. Literally went door to door and said, what do you really care about? Though that became sort of the polling for issues, ended up where we cared about things that people are like, do you really want to run on that? I was like, yeah, I think it's a good idea to give people more housing. I think it's a good idea that teachers need a better salary. Why are we lying to ourselves and having an uncomfortable conversation? Why is it that we can't support an individual for their belief, for who they want to be, without criticizing it? Those are the conversation I had with a lot of my constituents and voters, and that really took off and even to this day, I go back and I was like, every single day of the campaign, I can remember it as if it was yesterday, until election night, right around 7:10, 7:20. I was at the restaurant that we had our sort of, I didn't do a celebration dinner. I just said, I want to thank the volunteers. So I did a thank you to the volunteers and the people that helped me get here, because I did not expect that I was going to win.
Oh, surprise. All right.
I was like, but the whole time I kept the mentality that I'm going to win this, because here's the thing. If you're a leader, or if you are somebody within the organization and your name is on that door, your name is on that wall, you have to be the guy that believes in it the whole time. The moment you don't believe in yourself, other people are going to see it and it falls apart. So the whole time I knew I could do this, but I was never 100% sure on the outcome. What I knew is that I gave it 100%. My team gave it 100%. We kept the momentum going.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I got to the bathroom, I was like, I'm going to go and wash my face and then go out, talk to folks. We're not looking at the numbers. I get there. I look at the mirror and I'm like, oh, this is kind of, interesting. I kind of look at myself and I have this weird thought for 5 seconds. I was like, we did something. We ran a goddamn good campaign, and not many.
Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.